Good afternoon, I'm Ethan Moy here of Coach B as part of another episode of Coach B Weekly. Now Coach B, it's March. March brings a lot, you've got March Madness, you got spring just right around the corner here, although the weather outside doesn't really want to cooperate there. But March Madness, the Colonials have been a big part of March Madness the last so many years. But I want to go back to like your youth or like when you were in college. March Madness, is there a game, like a specific game from the NCAA tournament, men's or women's, that you really remember from your youth? You're like, I remember everything from that game.
Well, I don't know if I remember everything from a particular game. Speaking on the men's side, I remember the ending to Duke, Kentucky.
Christian Laettner one?
Christian Laettner,
Yeah.
He was from Buffalo.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah, originally a suburb of Buffalo.
So the documentary, the 30 for 30, I Hate Christian Laettner. Buffalo didn't hate Christian Laettner.
Not really. I mean, I'm sure there was people that were jealous of him because he
Right.
was such a big name when he went to college and he was doing so well, and you knew he was going to be an NBA, lottery draft pick and everything. So I'm sure most people were very happy for him. But he was from a little suburb outside of Buffalo called Angola. Which is about 15 to 20 minutes outside the city, and maybe a little further, maybe a half hour. But anyways, watching that game when Kentucky played Duke, I always remember the shot that gave Kentucky the lead and then the shot that Christian Laettner hit. I would say that was one. Another one I remember, Bryce Drew for Valparaiso.
Yeah.
I was a big Bryce Drew fan.
Okay.
The reason why is Coach Sal was coaching at University of Buffalo at the time, and Valparaiso was in Buffalo's conference, which at that time was called the Mid-Continent Conference, and which is no longer, I think, there's no longer, there's no any conference at any level, I think, called Mid-Continent. So Valparaiso was in the league, and I get to see them come and play University of Buffalo men's team at least once a year. And I knew Bryce Drew was Mr. Indiana coming out of high school, and he was just such a lethal shooter from the perimeter.
Yeah.
And anyway, it reminds me of Kyle Guy a little bit. Kyle Guy's much more explosive, running off screens and stuff. Bryce Drew's really good off the dribble, just pulling up anywhere on the court. But anyways, I followed them, and then when they went to the tournament that year, I was telling all my friends, and I was in high school at the time, I was telling my friends, this guy's you watch, he's gonna blow up in the tournament. People are gonna know who he is. And friends like, who's this guy? Who is this guy? Like, they weren't on TV much. They didn't, Valparaiso was in Indiana, we're in Buffalo. And of course, he goes off and has a great tournament and hits that big shot in the first round. One of the historic full court plays, like Laettner's play. This one was a little bit more choreographed.
I feel like everyone or most teams, high school, college, they run like a variation of that. Like 3 seconds ago, you throw a long pass to center court, guy streaking around the left. I remember we ran that in high school, called it Miracle. Big guy catches it center court, guy streaking around the left, passes up there, he hits tries his luck from about 25, 30 feet.
Yeah.
And for Bryce Drew, it went in.
Yeah, and it was
to perfection.
And believe me, once he got that look, it was the furthest thing from luck. Because when that guy squared up and had a good look from that distance, it was good. So, Tyus Edney's full court UCLA. I mean, I go back. A lot of them are in high school that I remember. The finals. I remember some of the finals. I was really excited for a lot of the finals. On the women's side, I remember. A few tournament games that were memorable to me. When UConn women won their first one, I can remember watching that because I was starting to follow Gino a little bit back then, because the first Final Four I ever went to as a kid, he was in. They didn't win it, but he had just started building the program. So I remember the first one that they won, and I would say those are probably the ones that I remember the most as far as when it comes to other teams as March Madness. Now that's without saying our stuff that we've had in March Madness.
Say excluding Army because we can fill a show with all kinds of different March Madness moments.
That were the moments that we've had, the memories over the years. Nothing I can remember more clearly than those. So.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good memory, and hopefully we can add to some March Madness memories here in a few weeks.
We're working on it.
This past weekend, I had the last road trip of the season. First off on Saturday, beat Wagner 77-57. In that first quarter, he scored 32 points, which is a school record for points in the first quarter. Third most points you ever scored in a quarter in that game. What really led to that kind of performance there right out of the gates?
had good preparation. Going into that Saturday game, we had a pretty good week of practice. We went out there with a game plan to execute. Wagner came out just like we thought. They were playing very hard. They were coming after us. They were playing with a great pace. We had to be sharp early on and come ready to play, come ready to load up and shoot or post up strong inside, and had a good healthy balance early in the game. I really thought we set the tone, offensively at least. Defensively, they were getting the best of us a few times. They had scored some points early in the game, so we needed the scoring because the pace they were playing at and that they were getting some stuff. But that was really the reason for us being so productive in the first quarter was great preparation and just being ready to go out there and attack. And they playing a zone on us, and we had attacked the zone pretty well. And as in the past, we had some games where we didn't do so well against the zone. Whether we're getting a good look or not, we were completing the play and knocking the shot down or getting the ball down to the basket and touching their paint even against a zone. So we had a good mix there, good balance, and you got to come out ready to play. You got to execute, and that's what we were ready to do.
Yeah, good inside-outside game there.
Absolutely.
And then last night it was kind of the opposite against Sacred Heart. That was a 54-45 loss. Fell into a 30-13 hole there. You had scored four of the first 7 points really there in the first minute and a half, and then were held scoreless at the end of that for the remainder of the first quarter. But what really led to those first half struggles?
Like when we talked about coming out being ready to play just a moment ago and being ready to execute, we didn't have that it factor last night, and that was evident as the game was developing. We had just clinched the regular season championship. I mean,
we'll get to that.
Yeah, there was no way we could avoid, or did we want to not allow the student athletes to be recognized for that and enjoy that on Saturday. After the game was over, there wasn't much of a celebration, but there was a celebration and a feeling of achievement of what we have accomplished. And we didn't want to ruin that. We didn't want to knock that down, but we had to be ready to come back to work when it came to practice, video sessions, and then ultimately going into the game. And we didn't have that extra, and that was evident. That was evident. As a coach, someone that's been around this my whole life, as a child, as a teenager, and then starting on being a volunteer and working my way up into this position, I've experienced so many things. I've seen so many scenarios of, situations where a team is fighting for their lives to continue to play, and then a team is, set the table already for there's going to be no movement in their standings. And me, I don't look at standings. I don't look at scores. I just look at the next team. I really sacrifice my life of not being a fan in any way, shape, or form, and just focusing on what we can control. That's a sacrifice. And a lot of people would love to have the what do you do that's so special? And a lot of it has to do with sacrifice. What I feel is special for us doesn't mean we're always going to win the game or we're always going to be perfect. There's no perfect game. There's no perfect people. But sacrifice will take you a long way. And in our culture, we sacrifice being fans and concerning ourselves with what's going on around the league, and looking at standings, scenarios, all that stuff it doesn't excite me at all, and we need to stay away from that with the way we think. Other people, they might have a way of doing that it works for them. But anyways, to come back and play that game last night, we had to be extra tough and extra mentally ready with the situation of what we are earned. It kind of,
coming off of that.
I think it played a part in it, and we can't let that happen. But I mean, like I was saying, I knew it was coming, and I'm doing everything I can as a coach to prepare them. I'm trying to prepare them. I'm talking to them about it. Very passionate going into the game about the things we needed to do and the things that we were looking to accomplish, the scout strategy, as much as we scored, as much as we did in the first quarter on Saturday. Look at our production, like you said, 4 points. Got some good looks, weren't ready to shoot it. Got the ball to some areas that we were looking to attack. We got hesitant just to not play free. I'm always telling the team, play as hard as we can, play as smart as we can, and play as free as we can. And you know, a lot of times when you look back at your careers, you might come across coaches that don't allow you to play free, and it bothers you. Well, here you're allowed to play very free within the structure of what we're doing. There's a lot of freedom. And a lot of time it's the student athletes that hold themselves back from playing free.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of it last night. And you know, I give Sacred Heart a lot of credit. I have to give them credit for going out there and coming out really, really aggressive. And obviously they were, I guess I learned after the game they were playing to solidify the 2 seed.
Yeah.
So
They're
you
coming
know,
off a big win against St. Francis BA.
yeah. So that was a big game for them. I guess, like I said, I didn't get into all that. All I knew is that they were going to be. I knew they would come ready. I knew they were going to come out ready to go and want to come out and get us. And we weren't ready to match that intensity, especially early on as we found our moments to battle throughout the game. We started making some runs and take over the culture at times, but you can't get off to a start like that, you know, when it comes to, you know, how you come out ready to play.
Speaking of that game, now you're 15-2 in the NEC. Started with 11 wins in conference play before your first loss, and 4 wins before your second loss here. So, what's the biggest thing that you've learned over in these defeats, these tough ones here, especially after stretches of success?
Well, we have to be much more accountable in moments where the normal person could lose that accountability. Talk to them about it all the time. If you want to be a great team, you got to be able to overcome those normal moments of where people would want to celebrate what we've accomplished or want to get comfortable with the fact that, you know, the game plan will win the game. You got to always be tough. You always got to be gritty. You always got to have that extra step. You got to always be working harder than the opponent. You know, in those 2 losses that we've had, both of those teams earned those victories against us. You know, a lot of times when you lose a game, you know, you're going to go back and you're going to look for the bad calls, you're going to look for the fluke plays, the bad bounces.
Yeah.
But we can't live like that. That's not going to make us better, you know. I mean, you can't live life by what is being done to me that I can't control. You got to be focused on the things that you can control. And that's what we would reflect on in those 2 games. There was a lot of things that we could control in those losses.
Yeah.
You know, there's obviously going to be tough shots hit, great plays. Like we said, the bounces. You know, last night there was a couple shots made late in the clock with real good contests. You know, where hands are up.
Shots, yeah.
They hit some shots late in the clock. One banked off the backboard in the first half, late in the clock, and you know, yeah, I understand. You know, you look at that and you say, man, that, you know, that accumulated for X amount of points, and the game was lost by this amount of points. So it kind of makes it like you would have won. It's just not going to help you. What you have to control is the things that you can control, and you know, that's what we got to go back and get into the video and get on the court and work on some things. You know, get to this time of year, there's not much break now. Saturday, Monday, Thursday. They set this up this way because a lot of the coaches didn't like the 2 places that we played last year in the tournament. But when we see this stretch coming up like this, you know, never looking ahead, but knowing that, you know, this is going to be that stretch where you're going to separate one team that's tough from the other. Now we got to do it with, you know, our standings being locked in. Some people would say, you know, rest and don't play this player and don't risk injury. You know, we don't live life, you know, going into any opportunity by saying, hey, you know, we're gonna
take it to like 75% rather than 100%.
Exactly. You know how we are. You know, we go out there and look for any opportunity to get better and to be a better team, and you can't do that doing anything less than 100%. So that's what we're looking for going forward, and if we're learning from those losses, you know, we got to turn back around now, get our mind focused back, and going out there and being ready 100% on Thursday.
Yeah. Bouncing back to that Wagner game here, they're one of the better offensive teams in the league. They're balanced scoring, but you turned them over 28 times in that game. What did you see on film that thought you could take advantage in that department?
They came out. We were playing very fast. That team had been playing very well, and you know, I told Coach after the game, Coach Jacobs, I said, hey, you guys are working really hard, and you're doing a great job, and that team had been executing extremely well. They've been pushing the ball well. We had to really, you know, be accountable. I mean, really talking in transition, matching up with them, not allowing them to get quick shots. You know, they were the type of team that when they were getting, you know, ball down the floor and getting into transition and finding open players and getting to the basket. They're tough. They just had won a game against St. Francis of Brooklyn recently before that, like 89, 87.
Yeah.
And we had watched some of that game. And, St. Francis of Brooklyn's a well-coached team, and they're good. So, they just knocked them off at home, and you could just see that, that they were really playing with confidence, playing fast, working hard. I mean, team works hard.
Yeah.
So,
it was like that in that first quarter. Just went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth before you really kind of put your foot down, got some stops defensively, and really just poured it on.
Yeah, you gotta be able to outwork the opponent, and they were coming out, and they weren't an easy team to outwork. And I was very proud of the effort that we had on Saturday, and obviously that win, set the table for what we were dealing with when it came to the regular season, championship, earning that first seed, and then we had to be able to bounce back. So you could see the difference, if you were at both games. Hopefully we learn from it. I'm always looking to teach them and give them experience through, things of my own experience in the past, and give them experience before the situations happen, to talk to them about, hey, this is what's coming. But, I think the player-driven leadership mentality needs to take over more now, and to learn from that going forward, because, like you said, the Wagner game, we did some great things, and I was very happy with the performance.
Yeah, and speaking of the number one seed, that's the third number one seed in program history that you'll have in next week's NEC tournament. How important was it for the team to secure home court advantage, especially with a team, a lot of freshmen and sophomore on the team?
Well, we were a very young team, and
69.2% is freshmen and sophomores.
69.2% freshmen and sophomores. So, being a young team, there was a lot of recognition for us before the season, which we were very thankful for.
Yeah.
But as a coach, you know that youth is there, and you got a lot of work to do to not only get the youth ready, for the first game, but to get the youth ready through the adversity that you're gonna face throughout the season. A lot of times it's about getting them ready for the opening day, and that's not the season is not opening day. Opening day is opening day, and then throughout the season you're going to have your adversity. You're going to have your times where things get difficult. Some games you're going to have great games as freshmen and sophomores, and some games you're going to have tough ones. Got to be able to handle winning and losing.
Yeah.
That's really the big challenge. And that was the big challenge, and that is the big challenge still going forward. We have to understand that age is just a number. You can be mature and you can grow up. It's within yourself. It's in your heart that you want to use your experiences that you've had to learn from them and to turn it around. Sometimes student athletes they'll get it at a very early, and that's special. That you could start a freshman point guard and have so much youth in your rotation. And sometimes though it'll take some student athletes a little bit of time, to turn that corner and to start really soaking up what they're learning. I say soak it up like a sponge.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes them a while. This team this year has worked very hard in most spots. Here we're talking about last night, and it wasn't our best effort at all. But we've had some great moments this year where our youth has grown up and playing well. So I think that has a lot to do with our record this year, and just the constant willingness to come to practice and work every day, even when we have our tough days, or we don't have that day that we wanted to have, coming back and responding. I think that has a lot to do with our record this year, is the response towards bad moments, adversity, losses. Remember, we started off 3-9 in the non-conference, played a very tough non-conference schedule, and we were able to come back into conference and use that, even with the youth, to go forward with grace instead of misery. And I think that had a lot to do with it too, is that we took that non-conference tough schedule. We had those tough losses. We had so many heartbreakers. But we used it not to be misery, and not to be miserable and negative, but to go forward with grace and be positive, and just come back ready to go, in the conference.
Yeah, and then I have the benefit of not having to leave Moon Township until a national postseason tournament.
Yeah, it's great where we are. Certain conferences go and play at a neutral site and all that, but when that is the system that is there.
That's a reward.
It's you earn it,
Yeah.
and we've been talking about earning a ton. You know, it's much better to have earned that than to before the season that to be set just based upon rotating around from school to school. You know, I think everything that the student athletes should be learning in this experience is earning what they get, not hoping or feeling entitled to anything that they get, but earning it. So, you know, it doesn't guarantee anything for us going forward. Home games are something that, you know, is not a guarantee. No matter what a record or stat can be thrown at you, you've got to come to play, and you've got to be ready to go. And, you know, this time of year in March, you know, coming up on Thursday, we have a game that is going to be won by, you know, how hard we play and how, you know, how much we want it.
I got 2 fan questions here. First one being from Kennedy. First one being from Ted from Kennedy Township. It's kind of a 2-parter here. He asked, you have a lot of international players and they all have very distinctive names. Has there ever been an international player you've had trouble learning or pronouncing? And also, who usually comes up with the players' nicknames, i.e. like Aussie, Finn,
Okay.
etc.? So we'll get to the first one here. Have
The
you had
names.
a name, what's the toughest name that you've had over your career pronouncing?
Hanukkah is pretty hard to pronounce when you're in the flow of talking fast, you know. So we just call it Noka now, and everybody is just kind of given up on Hanukkah, except for Coach Marita.
Yeah.
Coach Marita still calls her Hanukkah
Yeah.
because they got that Japanese accent. So, but yeah, I would say that's a tough one. Nina Augustin, because Nia Adams was there.
Yeah.
Nina, it got difficult. Nia,
yeah.
that got real difficult. And you think that's such a simple name, but we had to go to Finn.
Yeah.
So it's kind of answering both questions. A lot of the ones that were tough, we gave the nickname. Yeah, absolutely. And then sometimes, you know, it's you know, some of the players that'll just, you know, just start calling each other something, and then it just catches on. You hear them calling it to each other, so we start calling it like Laura Carrasco. Laura's a simple name, but I think Kima started calling her LC.
Yeah.
So now I'm catching myself saying LC, and you know, it's just sometimes it's predetermined because of a difficult name, and sometimes it's not. There was one player back years ago,
That was going to be what?
Monsak.
Suhaidi.
Her name was Suhaidi, but nobody called her Suhaidi.
Right.
It was always Monsak, and she wanted to be called Monsak, and that was it. So that was a very strange one, because most people don't like to be called by their last name.
Right.
It's usually something that's a sign of disrespect. You know, if somebody saw
Well, it's
you.
like the teacher, you know, like you know, boy.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah, and you got
Come to
that.
my
I can see you got that before.
I've gotten that before, yeah.
You've gotten
Come to my
that.
office.
Yeah, you've got that one before. Just how you said it. There's some principal or
Right,
teacher
exactly.
that had that same
Yeah,
accent.
so you kind of maybe attribute that to that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that, that's normally as the situation, but with Suhaidi, I don't know if she just didn't like her first name or whatever, but she made sure everybody called her by Monsak.
Yeah.
And if you try to call her Suhaidi, she would say, no, Monsak. So I would say that was a tough one that we never had to talk about because she didn't want to be called Suhaidi. I would say those are, you know, we've had some ones before, like that we've had from other countries that had very difficult, like impossible last names.
Yeah.
And you know, we didn't even try to call them by their last names, but yeah, I mean, just when you have an international team, you know, you're going to come across some names that are very difficult because we just don't. Yeah, we don't say them every day, and you know, some of the cultures that the players come from, this diverse culture that we have here. Some of the players come from countries that they have like extended long names. Like most people from Spain have multiple names.
Yeah.
And in Africa especially as well, in certain countries, they have names that are extremely long, hyphenated like 3 times. So you just got to be like, well, what's the short version for that? You know what I mean? Because it's just part of their culture. But anyways, that's a good question because we've definitely come up with a lot of those situations because of our international and diversity we have.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to follow up with that. Like, okay, one name that sticks out to me and Nikki Stamalampru. How quickly did you get Stamalampru?
You know,
Did it take you like a little bit freshman year?
Yeah, you know,
Freshman year?
it took me a little bit, and I, you know, you never really have to say it a lot, Stamma Lamprou. So it was always just Anna Nicky.
Yeah.
You know, some of the players in the team would try to shorten her last name if they had to use it or something. But yeah, it was the last names are the ones that are workable, because you don't really say it too often unless you're like in a formal setting. It's the first names that are really tough, and you got to watch out with those Greek players too. Sometimes they have some, you know, you see on the back like the Greek Freak. I mean,
oh yeah,
I mean,
Giannis.
Yeah.
I just call him Giannis.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like she actually had one of the ones that was a moderately tough one. You see some of these last names from Greece, you go, wow. So we were fortunate enough with Artemis, and we had another one before, Anna Kavasala. They were names that were pretty relatively easy compared to how tough it could have gotten Greece.
Second question, last question here from the fans. Kyle, he asked simply, if you could have a superpower, what would it be?
A superpower.
Yeah.
Man, these are questions I never think about. You know, I mean,
try to keep guessing.
Yeah, I know. They bring me back to my youth.
Yeah.
You know, when you're a kid, you're thinking about, boy, I wish I could do this. I wish I could just go up and fly.
Oh, would it be flying?
Yeah, you know, I just maybe gave it away thinking about that. You know, yeah, I would say that would be a pretty neat thing to be able to do. I mean, relatively speaking, I mean, there's been some creative superpowers that I've seen in the movies, like Will Smith, where he could start one place and jump to another place without even having to fly. He would appear. Yeah, I would just say, just simply, it's got to be amazing. To be able to go up and just, if you want to get from one place to another, just take off and take the route with no traffic.
Have to get to the TSA.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to get the long lights, you know, where the big intersections kind of drop down right at the place that you want to be at. Yeah, I'm going to go old school, because I think that was one of those old school type of superpowers, you know, Superman and Batman. Nowadays, it's like flying. That's nothing, you know. So I would go back and show my throwback kind of mentality, just to be able to get up and fly and get from one place to another. I think that would be the neatest thing for a superpower.
I think I would go with flying as well. It's just, you know, it's convenient, flying from one place to another, not having to deal with traffic and everything like that.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot more fun, and I think it'd be a lot more beneficial than being able to like pick up a building, or you know, pick up cars and stuff.
Yeah, because if you pick up a building or pick up a car, you're like showing off, and that's all cool and everything. But like, what are you gonna do with it?
It's going to be much more resourceful, much less destructive, just to get up and fly if you want to get somewhere.
You're gonna mess up the infrastructure of the building.
Absolutely.
Knock off the alignment of the car.
That's right. That's right. Flying is something you're not going to disrupt anybody else.
Right, exactly. Maybe the birds in here, but
yeah, a little bit more traffic control will be needed. With you know, obviously getting tickets up in the air and stuff for you know, flying without you know, using proper signals and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it would be a neat superpower. So that's a neat question from Kyle.
There we go. And lastly here, like you said before, we have St. Francis, PA coming up here on Thursday, the regular season finale. You know, with the tournament on the horizon, you kind of already touched on this, but how big is this game going forward? Because I know that you don't want to lose 2 straight heading into the tournament.
Well, we never want to lose any game. I mean, we didn't want to lose last night. I mean, you know, I was telling the team before, during, and after, I will, you know, never give less than 100%, because no game to me is worth more than the next. You know, people would say, oh, that's nonsense. And, you know, I mean, hey, listen, everyone has the right to the way that they value going to work every day and games and practice. I mean, you know, this is just, you know, who we are. You know, we don't value one game over the next. You know, that's difficult in those situations where, like last night, but that's what I'm looking to challenge our student athletes with every day, is that we never want to go out there and put ourselves in a position to lose by giving any less. You know, the situation of what was created, you know, we got to go back out there and take the next opportunity as an opportunity to get better, to grow, to work hard, and to continue to put bricks on our foundation. You know, obviously on Thursday, that's going to be another opportunity for us. You know, that's what we have to be looking towards. Never looking past any game. We don't do that ever. You know, this is the next challenge. This is the next game. Want to go out there and play well. Want to go out there and work hard. Want to be the tougher team. Want to work harder. You know, I never see a situation where that could ever be less than 100%. So all we're focused in on is Thursday. I'm not thinking about anything past that, and that's something that hopefully with the youth on our team and with the leadership that's in the locker room from the few upperclassmen that we have, that that's something that'll be 100% in their hearts. And that was a big message I talked to them about after last night. The coach-driven mentality is never going to win.
Right.
It's important to have coach-driven, but player-driven is going to be the difference between winning and losing the games and actually going out there and executing the game plan. We fell short last night, but we have to learn from it. And like I always said, we got to know how to come back from winning and losing, and value each opportunity to go on the court. It is a blessing to be able to do what we do. It's a blessing to be able to go out there and compete at the level we're competing at, and to play as hard as we do, and to continue to have our health, and to continue to have opportunities to bond together and to work hard together and to do something as a team. So don't ever take any game for granted when you have an opportunity to keep doing that. So that's really our message for Thursday, is just continue to fight and continue to go hard, and continue to try to get better every day. And no game is going to be more meaningful than the next. The next game is by far the only game that we're thinking about.
Well said. Well, once again, thank you for joining me, and good luck on Thursday.
Thanks, Ethan. Appreciate it.
Thursday's game against St. Francis, PA is a 6 o'clock tip. It can be seen on MEC Front Row.